Fun Kids Science Weekly with Kay's Anatomy by Adam Kay. A hilarious, remarkable, and remarkably revolting journey around the human body for the whole family. Out now online and in all good bookshops.
It is time for a brand new episode of the Fun Kids Science Weekly. Thank you so much for listening. Welcome along. My name's Dan. This is the show that does a full tour of the universe and just tries to bring you some of the most amazing things that are lurking around inside. This week, you can hear about a dangerous beast that's got a brilliant way of defending itself, and it fits its name amazingly well. Also, you can hear about a brand new rocket test that's just happened. And I'll answer some of your questions this week. They're on cheetahs, they're on chemical reactions, and also something about the sunset and why the sky changes colour. We'll get to those in just a sec. First, let's kick it off as always with one of our favourite geniuses on the show. This is K-Mystery.
K-Mystery, elements in danger.
Hey guys, we've been checking out some elements in danger. The ones we need for our mobile phones and other gadgets. With a bit of help, of course, from...
Looking for a chemistry superhero alter ego? K-Mystery at your service. Okay, Karina, can you remember the elements in danger we've been delving into? Quick quiz. 3, 2, 1, go.
Let's see. Silver, arsenic, indium, yttrium, and gallium, and tantalum. Ta-da! Did I catch them all?
Pretty good. But they're just a few of our rare elements. There are about 60 and 70 elements that are used in a phone, and plenty of those are in short supply.
And in 100 years, it's likely that there will not be even 1 tiny gram of them left.
Well, here's the thing. Who knows? There might be more out there. I mean, when you run out of salt in your kitchen, doesn't mean there's no more salt in the world. But with rare elements, we can't just go to the supermarket to get some more. And it's kind of completely impossible to search every inch of the planet to see if we can find other sources of these elements.
Even a superhero like you.
Not even me. Sometimes we can't get to the sources because, say, they might be deep under the oceans or in countries we can't safely visit. Or they might be in really beautiful or ecologically important parts of the world, which we don't want to ruin by mining.
But what about substitutes? I mean, when my dad makes cakes, sometimes he uses oil if we don't have butter. They taste the same.
The reason we use the elements that we do is because they're pretty much the best ones for the job. They help make technology tough, super fast, and able to do like a million things at once.
Let me guess, if we have to use other elements, ones that aren't quite as good as the job, things could slow down?
Got it. We are likely to find substitutes, but that'll take time, and they might just not do the job as well. Come on, hurry up.
I'm trying. Whoa, that was weird.
Think about how technology gets faster and faster. It's sometimes impossible to keep up. Do you really think we'd be happy if all our gadgets got slower and didn't last as long?
So what are we going to do?
Well, it's important that we think about using more common types of elements if we want to keep having gadgets.
Well, that's a lot of work for the scientists. What can I do?
There's plenty you can do. More gadgets mean more elements are needed. So simply buying fewer phones and tablets, well, we could start preserving the resources that we have. Sharing and reusing technology you don't need anymore and recycling them when they're broken. Some of these rare elements can be recovered and used again.
So you're saying if I help out, I'm kind of being a chemistry superhero too, just like you?
Well, no one is just like me, Karina. But you'll be the next best thing.
Thanks, K-Mystery.
K-Mystery, elements in danger. With support from the Royal Society of Chemistry. Find out more and get hands-on with chemistry at funkidslive.com/chemistry.
Right, let's answer some of your questions then. One of my favourite parts of the show every week, where you send your science niggles over to Apple Podcasts. You find Fun Kids Science Weekly on there. Wherever you're living in the world, I can see them, and then I'll try and find the answer for you. Now, this one, to start with, is from Ralph, who is from here in the UK. He's 7 years old. He asks, how do cheetahs run so fast? And they do run fast, Ralph, don't they? They can get to 60 miles an hour. Which is the speed limit for cars in some places. To help them out with that, they have special adaptations around their body. They've got a small, lightweight frame, long legs, loose hips, a flexible spine, movable shoulders as well. It means they can take huge strides as they leap forward. They've also got thick leg muscles, which help them go faster. And they've got wide nostrils, large lungs, and a really powerful heart, which helps them get more oxygen to their blood so they can pump it quickly around to their muscles so they can keep going. It brilliantly shows how well creatures are adapted for what they need. Thank you for that, Ralph. We're headed to the other side of the world now with the Chirp Chirp brothers, who are from Sydney, Australia. I love Sydney. The Chirp Chirp brothers are Yanni and Oscar. Now, this confused me a little bit. Yanni is spelt with an S at the end, like Yanis. And at the end of their post, they said, Yanis rhymes with honey, by the way. I couldn't figure out what that meant. I mean, I can get my science, but I can't figure out my letters. And finally, I understood. It can't be Yanis. It must be Yanni. So I'm going with Yanni. Yanni and Oscar. They ask, why does metal rust? Well, rust is the product of a chemical reaction. The iron in the metal, it reacts with the oxygen in the air and the water as well when it rains or when it's a bit dewy, and that makes iron oxide. And iron oxide is a brown yellowy colour, which we see as rust. So thank you very much, Chirp Chirp brothers. I hope I managed to get your names right. And also one last one, this is also about colours, from Australia as well. This is from Austin, who's in Newcastle, who wants to know why the sky changes colour at sunset. Now, this is because of scattering, which is what happens with light. Now, when the sun is low in the sky, the light rays get through more air. They have to travel quite further. And the air there has more molecules, more stuff in it to scatter the blue and the violet light away from your eyes. Remember, different colours have different length of light waves. That's why you can see them. Now, when these hit some molecules that are in more air, more atmosphere, they bounce away, leaving only the reddy orange light to reach your eyes. It's quite like a simple idea, but it's quite confusing to get your head around, I think, that one. Still, thank you for the question, Austin. If you've got something sciencey that you want answered on the show, if you want a little shout out as well, you need to leave it for me as a review over on Apple Podcasts. It's the Fun Kids Science Weekly. Now, today we're hearing all about a start-up business that is dedicated to seaweed, because it turns out the slimy stuff might just help save the world. On the line from the Faroe Islands, Olavur Gregersen. He's from Ocean Rainforest. He's an algaepreneur, and he can tell us more. Hey, Oliver.
Hi.
Hey, well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. There's a lot to get our head around in this. So just tell me, where did the idea for Ocean Rainforest come from? The very first idea that you had that maybe seaweed could help everyone?
Well, it was actually so that there was a young guy or it's a young man who came to me a bit more than 10 years ago, and he said, the world is having a big problem. We are emitting too much CO2, and we are cutting trees and forests, so the Earth doesn't take up the CO2 as it used to be, or it used to do. And in the Faroe Islands, we are a small group of islands. We don't actually have any trees at all, so we don't take much CO2 up from on land, but we have a huge ocean area around us. In fact, the ocean around the Faroe Islands is the largest ocean per capita or per person living in a country. So we have a lot of ocean space. So his idea was we can grow seaweed in the ocean because seaweed takes up CO2 as it grows. If we seed a rope and put it in the ocean, it will grow with the natural nutrients that are in the ocean. It doesn't need any feed and it doesn't need any water. It just needs light to grow. It's called photosynthesis. And as it grows, it takes up CO2 from the ocean. And when we harvest that seaweed, we take up the ocean, the CO2. And that was what I thought was fascinating, because in addition to doing something good for the world in that way, we also have a biomass that we can use for food or for feed, or even producing something we today produce from fossil fuels or from oil or oil product. And an example of that is that we can use seaweed or some of the ingredients in seaweed to produce packaging material.
So there's a lot going on under the sea here. This is a really stupid question, I reckon. One of the issue with greenhouse gases and with the world getting hotter is that quite a lot of the air, quite a lot of the carbon dioxide is above ground. How is algae that's under the sea, how is that helping suck up all the CO2 that's floating around in the air?
Well, it is actually such today that there's a lot of uptake in the oceans around. You know, the planet that we live on, 70% of it, or 2/4, sorry, more than 2/4 actually, is ocean. So a lot of this CO2 or greenhouse gases that are taken up by the planet is taken up by small algae or plankton that are in the ocean. So already today, ocean is taking up a lot of the CO2. But when you look at it, what is the most, you could say, what's best, who's most efficient, or who's the most, who's best at taking up CO2? It's definitely the tropical rainforest when we look at the land. And because the trees that are growing there, they are very good at taking up CO2 and storing it. But when you then look at how much CO2 does a tree in the tropical rainforest take up, and compare that with a seaweed plant, and you can take 1 square meter of trees in the ocean in the tropical rainforest and 1 square meter of seaweed, well, then it turns out that the seaweed is actually better at taking up CO2 than the trees in the tropical rainforest. So therefore, we need to build more ocean rainforests. And that's also why we have the name we have, and that is a very fundamental drive for everything we do.
Now, I've seen a picture of this online, the offshore rigs that you've made. Can you briefly describe to us, Oliver, what an ocean rainforest would look like under the sea? How all of these slimy bits of seaweed, how they would interact with each other, where they would be put, how you're going to decide where these rainforests will be?
Yeah, first of all, we need to have a spot where there's good light. It doesn't make sense to grow it where it's a bit dark, so the more light we have, the better. Secondly, it's good with some turbulence in the oceans, because that means that there's a constant supply of nutrients. So we are happy to have some current or some movements in the waves. Actually, where we are cultivating today is a quite exposed area out to the ocean, and there can be waves that are as high as 6 meters, even higher sometimes. And it's important that these rigs or these structures that we put out in the ocean are able to withstand that and can survive it. But then what we do is that we see the line, and we then put it on what we call a rig that is anchored or moored up in the ocean. And this seeded line is typically put into the ocean in November. And when I say a seeded line, it means that we have very, very little seedlings that we have produced in a hatchery on land. And we put that on the line, and you can't really see there's anything there, but they are there. And they will then sit from November to February, March, and just collect nutrients all over this Christmas and over the winter. And then when the sun and the light starts to come in great abundance in March, April, then they start to grow, and they grow very fast. And this, as you call slimy bits and pieces, I mean, the seaweed, when it grows in the spring and when it's fresh, it's actually quite delicious. It can be quite crispy.
Delicious?
Oh, yes, it is. So,
what do you eat it with?
If you take fresh seaweed, you grind it up, and then you can freeze it in an ice cube, and then you can use it for a morning smoothie with your banana.
We've learned some amazing stuff. Oliver, listen, thank you so much. I know that you've just got quite a lot of cash from the World Wildlife Fund, so brilliant work there. It's amazing what you're doing. Good luck with Ocean Rainforest, and thank you so much for telling us all about it.
Thank you very much for your interest.
This week's Dangerous Dan, it's all about a small creature with a very strange way of defending itself. There are more than 500 species of the Bombardier beetle. What a brilliant name. You can find out how it lives up to that name in just a sec. You find them all over the world in warm woods and high grasses. They're carnivores, so they feast on smaller insects. But when they're threatened, things get very weird. Listen to this. The Bombardier beetle can shoot out boiling acid from its abdomen. Seriously. They have hydroquinone and hydrogen peroxide inside them. They're two different chemicals. They're stored in separate parts of their body. But when they're threatened, they mix together. And the reaction between the two, with an enzyme added in as well, it makes it hot enough that it pretty much reaches boiling point. And then the beetle, it shoots this out in rapid bursts. It can shoot out 500 bursts a second. They burn the eyes. They burn the skin of the predator as well. They even make it when they've been swallowed, so they get vomited back up again, and then they walk away free. And it's these acid bombs that give the wicked creature its name. It's so horrendously awful and dangerous and terrifying, but brilliant at the same time. It's the Bombardier beetle. Right, let's travel back in time now to have a look at a dangerous, deadly beast from history. This is the age of the dinosaurs.
Age of the Dinosaur with Dinosaur Action Magazine, the #1 mag for dino fans.
Imagine going back in time, not 100 years or 1,000 years, but millions of years. To the age of the dinosaur. Welcome to the Jurassic period, which was between 145 and 200 million years ago. It was a time when plant life began to flourish once again, as newly formed oceans brought rain to many parts of the world that had previously been nothing more than dry deserts.
Phew, it's really hot here.
Vast, humid forests covered much of the land. But unlike the forests you see today, the Jurassic forests were full of giant ferns and tall leafy green conifers, similar to monkey puzzle trees and giant redwoods. Under this towering canopy were smaller leafy plants similar to the ferns and horsetails that we see today. Plants weren't yet producing colourful flowers to attract insects. Instead, many produced cones full of seeds and pollen, or tiny capsules containing spores. It therefore wasn't a time to stop and pick a bunch of blooms. Not that you'd want to, with some of the animals around.
Uh-oh, something's coming.
With trees taller than houses, dinosaurs were built to match. Huge sauropods, some reaching more than 12 meters high, and others over 30 meters in length, roam the forests, reaching up high with their long necks to eat the rough leaves at the top of the tallest branches. Many lived and traveled in large herds, which helped ward off predators.
Whoa, look at that one, it's huge.
Ah yes, that's a Camarasaurus. Brachiosaurus and Camarasaurus were two sauropods you'd find in a Jurassic forest. Both were huge quadrupeds, meaning four-legged animals, with small heads but long necks and large bodies. The Camarasaurus had enormous chisel-shaped teeth that could be nearly 15 centimeters long, and they helped him to chew his food, something not all sauropods could do. Don't worry, they wouldn't be interested in chewing you and me. As vegetarians, they'd rather have some tasty leaves.
Quick, he's looking for more leaves. Duck!
Paleontology. Pick.
Fossils help us understand what dinosaurs were like, but scientists didn't really start to examine fossils until only 200 years ago.
Do you know how a fossil is made? After the soft parts of an animal have been eaten or rotted away, the hard parts like the skeleton became covered in silt, sand or earth. Over time, these layers became deeper, and water flowing slowly through the rock brought minerals that started to replace the bone bit by bit. Eventually, these minerals totally replaced the original bony skeleton with an exact replica in rock, and therefore preserved for fossil explorers to discover millions of years later. Prehistoric animals and plant life can also be found in amber, which is formed when a sticky resin from trees sets hard. Scientists have found insects trapped inside amber, perfectly preserved for us to see today.
Age of the Dinosaur with Dinosaur Action Magazine, the #1 mag for dino fans.
It's time for this week's Science in the News. A hidden camera has captured a tiger hugging a tree, and it's won a huge photography award. Sergei Gorskov used a sneaky camera, and it took a picture of a Siberian tiger deep in the forests of the Far East in Russia. And it's won in the title of Wildlife Photographer of the Year. Please, if you get a chance, look up that photo. It's absolutely incredible. Also, a rocket built by the Amazon founder Jeff Bezos' space company has tested some new tech. The new Shepherd booster has been developed by Blue Origin, and it can land vertically on the ground after it's been into space. So it lands exactly how it's taken off. And now it's being planned to take humans to the moon in 2024. And finally, Australia's Great Barrier Reef has lost more than half of its corals in just the last 25 years. It's due to warmer seas being driven by climate change. It's breaking the coral, it's bleaching it, and it's causing it to die. And that is it for this week's Fun Kids Science Weekly. Thank you so much for taking this trip all around the universe with me. If you've got a science question, by the way, that you want answered on the show, you need to leave it as a review so I can see it wherever you are in the world. We went to Australia today. I get them from all over the place. If you want to get yours on, leave it as a review for us over on Apple Podcasts. While you're on there, it's one of the best places that you can find all of our science series. You can get them there on the Fun Kids app and at funkidslive.com as well. And Fun Kids are a children's radio station from the UK. You can hear us on your DAB digital radio on that free Fun Kids app and at funkidslive.com.
Fun Kids Science Weekly with Kay's Anatomy by Adam Kay. A hilarious, remarkable, and remarkably revolting journey around the human body for the whole family. Out now online and in all good bookshops.